The notice was taped to the front door with a single strip of clear packing tape. Property sale notification. Pursuant to the closing compiled on January 4, the above reference property has transferred to new ownership. Cronk occupants are requested to vacate premise within 30 days. I read it 3 times standing on the porch in the January dark, my daughter's roller backpack still in my hand from the school pickup I had just made. The porch light was on. The wreath Josie and I had made together last November, pine cones and ribbon and a little wooden star she'd painted red, was still hanging on the door. The mail I'd forgotten to collect that morning was still stuffed in the box. But the house, according to the paper I was holding, now belonged to someone named Darby. Effective 6 days ago. I didn't cry on the porch. I set Josie's backpack against the railing and told her to go inside and start her homework. I waited until I heard the door close and her footsteps crossed the hardwood toward the kitchen table. Then I took out my phone and called my brother. He answered on the 3rd ring. I could hear the clatter of the restaurant behind him. Dinner service, clattering plates, someone calling an order back. "Hey," he said, kind of in the middle of. "You sold the house," I said. A pause, a specific kind of pause, not surprise, not confusion measured. "We were going to call you this week," he said. "We, him and my sister-in-law, always we." "The closing was 6 days ago," I said, according to the notice taped to my front door. "Look, the timing got tight and things moved fast and—" "I own half of that house," I said. "Grandma left it to both of us. Equal share. I never transferred my interest. I never signed anything." Another pause, longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice had flattened into something careful. "Actually, you did sign, Stella. September. The quitclaim deed. You transferred your interest so we could proceed with the listing." I stood on that porch in the cold for a long moment. I looked at the wreath on the door, at the little red star Josie had painted herself. "I have never signed a quitclaim deed," I said. "Stella, I have never signed anything that transferred my interest in this property, not in September, not in any month." "You were going through a lot. The grief, the stress, maybe you don't remember clearly." I hung up. My husband had died 22 months earlier. He was 31. A delivery truck ran a red light on Route 9 and hit his car at 50 miles an hour, and that was that. Josie was 4. She still asked sometimes why Daddy didn't come home, and every time she did, I felt something inside me refracture along the original seam. The life insurance policy through his employer had paid out $48,000. Not a life-changing sum. Not nothing either. Enough to matter. Enough that my brother had called me 7 months after the funeral, sat down at my kitchen table, and asked if he could have it. The restaurant was drowning. He'd opened a second location at the wrong time, overextended the line of credit, and now the debt was killing the original location too. He needed $48,000 to clear the balance and keep the doors open. He'd looked at me from across my kitchen table with his exhausted eyes and said, "I wouldn't ask if I had any other option." I had given him the money, every dollar. Not because I didn't need it, God knows Josie and I needed it, but because he was my brother and I had spent my whole life believing that family meant something, and because he had shown up at the funeral and stood next to me when our father kept going to pieces, and because I was not yet wise enough to understand the difference between loyalty and conditioning. In exchange, he signed a written agreement, witnessed, notarized. He would buy out my half of the inherited house at fair appraised value within 3 years, and until that happened, Josie and I could live there without paying rent. It was simple. It was documented. There was a notary seal on the bottom of the page. Apparently, it was also meaningless to him. That night after Josie was asleep, I went to the filing cabinet in the bedroom closet and pulled out every document I had. The probate paperwork from when my grandmother passed, the deed showing joint inheritance, the notarized agreement my brothers had signed. I laid them on the bed and photographed each page. Then I opened my laptop and searched for real estate attorneys in the county. I called my father before I went to sleep, not because I expected him to take my side. My father had always navigated family tension by agreeing with whoever he'd spoken to most recently, but because I believed he deserved to hear my version before it got buried under his son's. "Your brother told me you were upset," my father said. They'd already gotten to him. "Did he tell you I never signed a quitclaim deed?" I asked. "He said you were under a lot of stress, that you might not remember things clearly." I sat on the edge of my bed. The filing cabinet was still open behind me. "Dad," I said, "I'm a 32-year-old woman with a college degree and a filing cabinet full of documents. I didn't sign away half of Grandma's house and simply forget about it." "Stella, your brother has been under enormous pressure. The restaurant, I gave him $48,000, I said quietly. "Every dollar of my husband's life insurance, Because he asked me to. Because I believed in him. And now he's telling you I'm confused so that you won't believe me when I tell you what he did. My father was quiet for a moment. Just don't do anything rash, he said finally. Family matters don't need lawyers. I thanked him, hung up, and added one more name to my mental list of people I could not count on. The attorney I found, a woman named Ms. Whitford who had been practicing real estate law in the county for 19 years, called me back within 2 hours of my voicemail. I laid out the situation in plain, calm terms. She asked me to email the documents I'd photographed. She called me back 40 minutes later. The quitclaim deed on record shows your signature notarized in September, she said. But I'm looking at your actual signature on the notarized agreement from 15 months ago. They don't match. I know, I said. This isn't a family dispute anymore, she said. This is forgery, possibly wire fraud, given that a mortgage lender was involved in the sale. I need you in my office tomorrow. I drove there the next morning with Josie's school bag packed for after drop-off and my folder of documents under my arm. Ms. Whitford had already pulled the deed records online and printed a side-by-side comparison of the two signatures. She slid it across the desk without comment. I looked at it. The signature on the quitclaim deed had my name, but the handwriting was wrong in small, specific ways. The slope of the S, the way the second A in my last name closed. It looked like someone had practiced it several times and then committed. Someone forged your signature and had it notarized, Miss Whitford said. Which means a notary either participated directly or was deceived. I'll file with the county clerk today. We also need to contact the state attorney's office. What about the people who bought the house? I asked. Are they going to lose their home? If they purchased using title insurance, which they almost certainly did, their insurer has a strong financial interest in clearing this title. They may end up being your most effective ally. She paused. I'll reach out to their title company this afternoon. The call I hadn't anticipated came that same afternoon. I was sitting in my car in the school parking lot, 15 minutes early for pickup, eating a granola bar because I hadn't managed to eat anything since the previous night. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it ring out. My sister-in-law had been calling all morning, 6 attempts since 9 a.m., all unanswered, and I was exhausted from the vibrating. But I picked up. Is this Stella? A man's voice. Older. Calm with the specific stillness of someone who had spent decades in professional situations requiring composure. Yes, who's calling? My name is Graham Darby, he said. My wife and I purchased the property at Ellison Court last week. I understand you may be the co-owner who did not consent to the sale. I sat up straighter in my seat. How did you get my number? Ms. Whitford's office contacted our title insurer this morning, he said. I'm a retired real estate attorney, and when the title company alerted us to the issue, I asked to speak to you directly. I didn't say anything. I was afraid to say the wrong thing. I want you to know, Mr. Darby continued, that my wife and I have no interest in taking possession of a property under these circumstances. We made an offer in complete good faith. If that deed was fraudulently executed, we want no part of it. I stopped, steadied myself. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he said. What I can tell you is that my title insurer has already placed a hold on the disbursement of the remaining sale proceeds to the seller. Your brother has not yet received the full payment. If the forgery is confirmed by the court, those funds can be clawed back. My hand was shaking against the phone. He told people I was confused, I said. That I signed things during a hard time and I don't remember. That grief affects your memory. A pause. I've been doing real estate law since 1987, Mr. Darby said. I have seen what fraud looks like, and I know exactly how the people who commit it talk about their victims afterward. They always use grief as a cover story, because grief is the one thing that makes everyone around you hesitate to believe you. It makes people want to take the easier explanation. Another pause. Do not let them make you hesitate. Through the windshield, the school's front doors were opening. Kids were starting to come out in their winter coats. I could see Josie's yellow jacket near the back of the line. She was walking with her head down, probably counting the cracks in the sidewalk the way she always did. I won't, I said. My brother called that evening. Not my sister-in-law, him directly, which told me everything about how scared he was. The title company froze the funds, he said. No preamble, no warmth. I know, I said. Stella, if this goes where you're trying to take it. You forged my name, I said, on a legal document, and you had someone notarize it, which means you either found a notary willing to participate or you forged the notarization too, which is its own set of federal violations. This is an overreaction. If you'd just come talk to us. I have one question, I said. Did you use any of the $48,000 I gave you to cover your closing costs? The money from my husband's life insurance policy. Silence. Because if you did, I said, then you didn't only steal my half of Grandma's house. You used the money I handed you in the worst year of my life to finance the scheme that took the rest. He didn't answer. I hope the restaurant was worth it, I said, and I ended the call. My sister-in-law arrived at the house 2 days later. I saw her car pull into the driveway from the kitchen, where Josie and I were working on a school project, a poster about the water cycle, lots of blue paint and cotton ball clouds. I watched her walk toward the front door with that posture she always had before an argument, chin slightly elevated, jaw set, the particular tightness of someone who had decided the conversation was already over before it started. She knocked twice, hard. I did not move. I know you're home, Stella. Her voice came through the door, sharp and carefully controlled. This is completely unnecessary. You're going to destroy our lives over a paperwork issue. Josie looked up from her project. Mommy, who's that? Your aunt, I said. Keep painting the clouds, baby. A paperwork issue, my sister-in-law continued. You're dragging our names through the legal system over a paperwork issue. My husband has spent 15 years building that restaurant into something real. The community knows us, and you are going to tear all of it down. Josie kept painting, her tongue pressed against her upper lip the way it always did when she was concentrating. I stood up, walked to the door, spoke through it without opening it. You forged my name, I said. You took the house my grandmother left me, and you sold it without my knowledge or consent. And now you are standing at my door telling me it was a paperwork issue, like I should be grateful you were at least planning to help me find a new apartment. Like I'm a logistical inconvenience you were in the process of managing. Silence on the other side. The state attorney's office has been notified, I said. Ms. Whitford filed with the county clerk this morning. The title company is cooperating with the investigation. If you'd like to continue this conversation, you're welcome to do it through my attorney. I heard her exhale, a sharp, frustrated sound, not remorse, just thwarted momentum, then footsteps retreating down the porch steps, a car door, an engine. Behind me, Josie held up her poster board. Mommy, does this cloud look right? I turned and looked at it. A lumpy, proud cluster of white cotton balls on blue paper, the most cheerful water cycle in the history of third-grade science projects. It looks perfect, I said. My father called again a week later. He had seen a notice in the local paper's public record section, a brief line about a fraud complaint filed against a property on Ellison Court. He called me before he called my brother, which I noted. Is this actually happening? He asked. Yes, I said. Your brother said, Dad. I kept my voice even. I have a notarized agreement, signed by your son, guaranteeing me co-ownership rights in that house. I have a forged quitclaim deed with a signature that doesn't match my handwriting by any reasonable forensic standard. I have a retired real estate attorney who bought the house in good faith and is refusing to proceed because the paperwork is clearly compromised. What exactly did my brother tell you that accounts for all three of those things? A long silence. He said you weren't yourself when you signed, my father said, but this time his voice held no conviction. He was repeating words that had been fed to him. I wasn't myself, I agreed. I was grieving my husband. I was raising a 4-year-old alone. And I handed your son every dollar of the life insurance payment because he told me he had no other option. I have the wire transfer records. I paused. I wasn't myself. But I knew exactly what I was signing and what I wasn't. Both of you counted on the fact that no one would believe a grieving woman over a business owner. He was quiet for almost a full minute. What happens now? He finally asked. Now the legal process does what it does, I said. I'd suggest your son find a good attorney. The criminal investigation moved faster than I expected. The notary on the fraudulent deed, a woman who ran a mobile notarization business for real estate transactions, cooperated with investigators within the first week. She had not witnessed my signature. She had been paid to notarize a document that was brought to her already signed, and she had done it anyway, which was a violation of her commission and a criminal offense in this state. She lost her notary license. She accepted a misdemeanor charge in exchange for her full cooperation. My brother and sister-in-law hired an attorney. The civil proceeding ran alongside the criminal complaint. Because the title company had frozen disbursement, the majority of the sale proceeds were still in escrow. Ms. Whitford filed a motion to have those funds placed under court supervision pending resolution. Mr. Darby and his wife formally withdrew from the purchase. They found another property. He sent a brief note to Ms. Whitford's office saying they wished me well. I kept that note in the filing cabinet. The whole process took 4 months. 4 months of legal correspondence and court dates, and my brother's attorney sending letters full of phrases like good faith reliance and mutual misunderstanding and disputed interpretation. none of which survived contact with the forensic handwriting analysis, confirming the signature on the quitclaim deed was not mine. My brother entered a plea to reduce charges in exchange for full restitution. He was required to pay me $89,000, the appraised value of my half of the property, plus damages for the fraudulent transfer, plus a portion of my legal costs. He did not go to prison. I sat with that fact for a long time, and I'm still sitting with it. My sister-in-law was charged separately with conspiracy to commit fraud. Her case was still working through the courts when I stopped checking the docket. The week the wire transfer cleared, Josie and I drove across town to look at a townhouse 2 miles from her school. 3 bedrooms, a small yard with a fence, a gas fireplace in the living room that Josie immediately and solemnly declared the fancy kind. The listing agent walked us through while Josie tested every light switch and opened every cabinet in the kitchen with the systematic dedication of a building inspector. I stood in the empty master bedroom and looked out the back window at a yard full of bare winter grass and a single stubborn rosebush that had clearly survived multiple seasons through sheer stubbornness. My husband would have liked it. He always wanted a yard he could actually do something with. He had plans for a garden, for raised beds, for fruit trees. He had so many plans, and Mommy Josie appeared at my elbow. She held up one finger. There are 9 cabinets in this kitchen. Also, there is a secret door under the stairs. A secret door? She demonstrated the size with her hands. Very small, very significant. It has a little handle. We could put things in there. What kind of things? She thought about it seriously. Important things, she decided. I looked at her, her father's eyes, my grandmother's cheekbones. This entirely specific, irreplaceable person who had arrived in my life 6 years ago and quietly rearranged everything I thought I understood about what was worth protecting. I thought about every moment over the past 4 months when I had almost talked myself into stopping, into settling for something smaller, into accepting a version of the outcome that cost less but gave back less, because fighting was exhausting, and the people I was fighting were people I had once called family. I had not stopped, I had not settled. Okay, I said, we can put important things in there. She grinned and ran back down the hallway to tell the listing agent about the secret door. I stayed at the window a moment longer. The rosebush outside had tight little buds on it, still closed against the cold, patient, certain that the temperature would eventually change. I made an offer on the house that afternoon. People asked me later, friends, a coworker who pulled me aside after the story got around, a cousin who reached out after months of silence, whether I felt guilty, whether I wished I'd handled it differently, whether destroying a family over money was really worth it. I never knew exactly what to say to that. What I wanted to say was I didn't destroy my family over money. My family looked at me, a woman who had handed over the last material thing her husband left behind, who had done it out of love and faith, and the conditioning of 32 years of being the one who smoothed things over, and they decided that grief had made me too weak to notice what they were doing. They assumed my pain was a kind of permission, a door they could walk through without knocking. They miscalculated. The thing about being the person who always extends the benefit of the doubt, who always shows up, who always holds on a little longer than they should, is that when you finally stop, you stop completely. There's no guilt pulling you backward, because you know with absolute certainty that you gave every possible version of grace before you made the call. I blocked my brother and sister-in-law from my phone the day the transfer cleared. My father I left unblocked. He called once, about 2 months after everything resolved. His voice was quiet and careful, and what he said surprised me. He said, I should have believed you faster, I'm sorry for that. Just that, no explanation, no defense. I said I know. And I meant it as both an acknowledgement and a kind of goodbye, not from him entirely, but from the version of him I had spent my whole life hoping he would become. Josie's favorite thing about the new house is the backyard. Not because we've done anything with it yet. It's still mostly patchy grass and that stubborn rosebush. But she's decided it belongs to her, and most afternoons after school she goes out and walks the perimeter of it slowly, dragging a stick through the dirt, narrating something under her breath that I've never been quite close enough to hear. I watch her from the kitchen window while I cook dinner, this small person in her yellow coat, walking her land, certain of something I can't name. I think about what it costs to rebuild something from almost nothing. Not from nothing, from what's left after everything else is taken. From wire transfer records and a notarized agreement and a phone call I almost didn't answer. From the decision made alone on a January porch in the dark, backpack in hand, to not cry, to just act. I didn't get justice from my family. I went and found it somewhere else. That's the part they hadn't planned for. That's the thing they forgot when they decided I was too broken to fight back. I was not broken. I was just quiet, and there is a difference. And the difference is that one of those things ends.